everybody. Welcome back to another video. And today, I'm gonna be honest, been a crazy week. Coming into the weekend, it's Sunday night at the moment. It was super busy. And couldn't really think about what to do a video about. So I thought I'd just chat with you guys for a little bit. Had a fairly eventful week this last week. So I thought maybe I'd just talk about that a little bit. Hopefully it'll be relaxing enough for everybody. So, this isn't something that I've talked about much on this channel, if at all, because it's somewhat embarrassing, so I haven't wanted to discuss it. But I have been unable to get my United States driver's license transferred over to an Australian driver's license. Now, the issue has been that because the state I come from, where I had my driver's license, under class on my driver's license, the field was blank. Because in the US, because of the federal system and states being able to mandate their own laws with regards to vehicle licensing, all the states can sort of make up their own thing about how their driver's licenses work. So in my state, you only have a class on your driver's license if it's for a vehicle type besides just a standard car. So if you could drive a car as well as a motorcycle, you would have an M there, or if you have a commercial driver's license, that would be there in the class field. But if you don't have any of those other types of licenses, like I didn't, then the field is just blank. So my license under class was blank. Now in Australia, every license has a class. Because if you have a car driver's license, you can't drive motorcycles, you can't drive cars, trucks, you can't drive cars or motorcycles, etc., etc., etc. So, when I moved here, about a year and a half ago at this point, I went in, I took my driver's license, I was getting everything ready to transfer it over. And everything was going fine. Boom, boom, boom. All the boxes were being checked, no problem. But then the person who was helping me at the counter, she got to the class field and she was like, well, your class here is blank. And I explained to her, I was like, yeah, I come from a state where, as I explained to you guys, we don't have classes unless it's for other types of vehicles. And even though it says driver's license on my license, and on the back of the license it says there's no restrictions on the license. I was basically told that I would need to go and get a letter on official letterhead from the what they told me was from the United States consulate, basically affirming that this type of driver's license permits me to drive a vehicle in my state, because they basically thought I wasn't allowed to drive any class of vehicle, even though it said class on it. Now what's funny is, at my current job, one of my coworkers is also an American, and he is from the same state that I'm from, and he said that he had no issues whatsoever transferring his license across. So seemingly it's just the luck of the draw, and I got unlucky. So I took that information, I said, okay, I'm gonna go get that sorted out, yada yada. But then around that time is when I ended up going to Japan, and then we were filling out the visa paperwork to get my extended partnership visa. Then my parents came and visited, and I was still doing online college for a semester at that point. So that kind of went on the back burner a little bit. It was about 3 or 4 months later that by the time I finally got back around to it, so I reached out to the US consulate in Sydney. And I was told, they're like, well, we can't assist you with any sort of licensing documents. They were like, the only things we can really do for you is like passports. If there's any sort of political whatever. But she said, but anything like this, the consulate can't help you with that. You have to talk to the Department of Motor Vehicles back in your home state. So I was like, alright. So, because of the time difference, the Department of Motor Vehicles in my home state, it's open at like 3 in the morning, Australian time here, so arranging that was difficult, but I called them, and when I called the Department of Motor Vehicles, I was told we don't have any sort of official letterhead that we can send out to you. We don't have any sort of paper that can explain that your license is valid for driving cars. They said basically like all we can send to you is like your driving record. So any sort of tickets, any sort of speeding offenses, anything like that, which I think I probably had 1 speeding ticket on there. But that didn't really seem like it would help me. But basically, the consulate said, no, they can't help me. And the Department of Motor Vehicles said, no, they can't help me. So I was like, alright. So I went back to Service New South Wales here. And I was like, listen, this is what the deal is. You told me I have to get this piece of paper. The consulate said that I can't get the paper. The Department of Motor Vehicles said I can't get the paper. So I don't know what else you want me to do. And that person said like, alright, I'm gonna contact the person who put the block on your account. And so they were going, and that was like an hour of me sitting there, them talking on the phones, going back and forth, back and forth. And they came to me and they're like, okay, so the person said that you need to provide the piece of paper unofficial letterhead, basically, they told me the first time. And I was like, well, yes, but as I just explained to you, I was told by the only two people that could potentially issue that document that no such document exists to be issued. And even when that was explained to the person who put the block on, they said, well, we still need to see the piece of paper, so we can't release the block. Basically, they had a block on my account. So, alright, well, at that point, after some sulking and much bemoaning, I was like, okay, well, my only course of action is to get a learner's license. So the way the system works in Australia is you get a learner's license. You can only drive with a fully licensed individual in the car with you. You can only drive up to 80 kilometers an hour, so in some spots the speed limit is 100 or over. Nope, if you're in an L, you top out at 80. You can't go higher than that, even if it is the speed limit. Also, you have fewer demerit points, and I believe that any fines you receive are higher than normal fines. But you only have like 4 demerit points, so basically like 1 speeding ticket, you lose your license. And I was like, alright, well, I'll have to do that. And then you go from an L to a P. And then like a P you can drive by yourself, but you still have restrictions on your speed. And like if you're on a P or an L, you can't use your phone even if it's for GPS. Like there's all these different restrictions. And it's harsher. I was like, okay, well that's like 180 days going through that process. So I was like, I've been driving since I'm 16. I've been driving basically half my life. So I'm a confident driver. I know how to drive. And thankfully, they make it pretty easy where you can go in and you can do all of the driving test stuff online. So you go online, you like watch the educational videos, you take the test, and then you just go into the licensing center. They can look at your account, see that you've passed the test, and they'll give you the learner's license. So I went through that whole process. I took all the little, watched all the educational videos telling me how to drive. Which, to be fair, there were some things in there, mainly about the different street signs. Since obviously street signs are different here than they are in the US, that were helpful to me. So I did all that, and then I went into the Service New South Wales, and I go up to the counter, fill out the form and everything, and I was like, I'm here to get my learner's license. And the woman at the counter that was helping me, she was very helpful. And she was like, I see here that you have an international driver's license. Is there a reason that you're not transferring it and you're getting a learner's instead? And I kind of started laughing, and I was like, listen, like, I don't want to get into it, but this has been like a year-long process, and I explained to her what I just explained to you. Now, when the very first time I went in, when the block was put on my account, that was at one particular location. The second time around, I went to a different location, hoping that if I was in a different location with different staff, the outcome would be different, not realizing that there had been an official block put on my account. So this time I went back to the original location where the block was originally placed on my account. And the woman this time, I explained the situation to her, and she's like, well, do you mind like sitting down for a few minutes? I want to try and figure this out. I was like, okay. Like I had an idea of what the outcome would be. But, I appreciate her efforts. I sat down, and she went back and talked to authorization was obviously the person who put the block on my account in the first place. So they had the authorization to take the block off. But again, luck of the draw, whatever it was, this day there was a different manager on duty. I don't know if the woman who put the block on my account left, if it was her day off, whatever, but there was a different manager on duty. So she's over there, she's explaining to the manager all the things that I've just explained to you. I watch him go on and Google, like, the laws for all the different licenses in the different states. And he's like looking at my license, he's looking at the Google page, and I hear him, he's like, well, all the security features match, it says no restrictions, it says driver's license. And then he's like looking at the Google results, he's like, and it says here, there's no class. And he's like, okay, it looks good to me. And he took the block off. So like a year later, I had given up hope completely. I was gonna go basically on like a driving permit, like a 16-year-old does in the States. And just, I got lucky, and I got this woman who was like willing to go to bat for me, to push back on it, to like, you know, take me at my word. And I got my full license transferred over. So that was such a relief. And but at that point, I hadn't driven a car for like a year and a half. And never on the left side of the road in a right-hand drive vehicle. So I was a little bit shaky. So I still went out with my fiance in the passenger seat. Drove, just did a couple laps around our neighborhood, went down the motorway, did all that stuff. I drove to work with her in the car a couple times. But then I ended up driving myself to work, and it's pretty, you know, I feel like I'm getting back into the flow of driving again, which feels so weird, and it's kind of off-putting because, like, for so long, driving was just sort of part of my identity. I've always loved road trips, and a big part of my life back home was always going on these long road trips. After my divorce, I drove out 6 hours into eastern Washington. I lived on a ranch for a couple of days. No internet, no phone reception, barely any electricity. Then after that, I drove down to Phoenix, Arizona, and I lived in a motorhome for a little while, out behind an illegal chop shop, paying like $20 a day to stay in it. And actually, some of the oldest videos on this channel, some of my NBA 2K videos, in those videos you'll see that I'm in a motorhome. Those are all filmed in the Arizona desert. So, you know, going on these long road trips, being behind the wheel, being comfortable behind the wheel has always been a part of my identity, and that freedom and that part of my identity had been taken away from me, and now I have it back. But I do feel noticeably less confident and less relaxed while driving. I noticed that I'm kind of always at full alert, and to a certain extent that's probably a good thing, because yeah, you should be paying attention while driving, but you know how it is when you're used to driving the same route. Sometimes you'll get somewhere and you don't even remember how you got there. But like, my drive to work is about 30 minutes, and the whole time I feel like I'm on high alert. I'm checking everything, triple checking, how close am I to the curb, how close am I to the lane. And by the time I get home, I'm so mentally exhausted from doing all of that. It's a really weird sensation. And you know, so far the hardest part has just kind of been like where you sit in the lane, being in a right-hand drive car, because I'm used to sitting on the left, so my view of the lane, you know, obviously you're closer to this side, And I'm just, what that visual looks like is burned into my brain. So now it's the opposite, and I have to be cognizant of staying further to the right than I think I ought to, because I'll notice myself drifting left a little bit, kind of closer to what in my mind is the center, but actually I'm too far left, and I've hit the curb twice. Thankfully, just going through roundabouts, nothing bad, but that's gonna be an adjustment for me. But yeah, that's been a very exciting development for me, getting that sense of freedom back. And hopefully I start to get back to being more comfortable with it again. Especially because, my wedding is in just a few months, and I'm gonna have my parents, my brother, and one of my good friends from back home flying out here. I'm gonna have to go drive into the city to the airport to pick them up, so it gets pretty busy down there. I better get a hell of a lot more comfortable with driving than I am currently before they do that. And also, at some point, I'd like to drive over to Canberra, Melbourne, because so far I haven't really left Sydney. I've gone down to Wollongong, gone up to the Central Coast a little bit, but 2 hours in either direction is basically as far as I've gone. I'd love to go down to Melbourne. I'd love to go to Adelaide someday. I hear Canberra's alright. There's a town I heard about, Waka Waka. Seems like kind of a cool place. I'd love to drive there and, just get that sort of road trip vibe back that I love so much. Because driving in Sydney can be quite stressful, to be honest. Even beyond being a fresh driver, people here drive very impatiently, very aggressively. Kind of reminds me of driving in Los Angeles traffic a little bit. Maybe even a little bit worse, I don't know. That is one thing too, is all the roundabouts here. We don't have very many roundabouts in the United States, at least not where I lived. So, there's so many here. Instead of four-way intersections, it's all roundabouts, and learning that, and learning when you have to be aggressive in a roundabout and when you have to kind of be a bit more passive in a roundabout. It's kind of a song and dance. But that was the big thing. And then earlier today, actually, my PC died. I was in the middle of playing Marvel Rivals. I've really been enjoying it. I was hoping to record some of the game for a video here, but the PC performance is actually really bad at the moment. And adding video game capture on top of that, I just don't think would work at the moment. I'm waiting for a patch. And if a patch does come out to fix the performance, I might do a video about Marvel Rivals then, but I have been loving it. But as now playing Marvel Rivals, all of a sudden my computer froze. No, that's not good. It froze, and then like nothing would happen. Alt F4, everything didn't change anything, so I turned my computer off. I go to turn it back on, and I get an error saying that that my PC can't find my operating system. I open my case up, and I'm noticing my C drive. I actually can't feel it spinning. I have 3 hard drives. I have my solid state drive, so I'm not gonna feel that. I have a 2 terabyte drive in there that I keep my media server on for Plex. I can feel that one spinning, but I can't feel my C drive spinning. So I started freaking out. I was like, oh, my boot drive literally just failed, and I hadn't recorded any videos or anything yet, because I'd had a pretty big weekend. And I was just like, okay, so I had to get a new hard drive. And, I was like kind of going down the list, and I was like, man, kind of spiraling a little bit. And I was like, okay, hold on, let's pump the brakes. So I made a bootable USB. So I put Windows 10 on here, booted into this, and I used the Windows those files here to repair my system somehow. I don't know how. I don't know if it happened from Marvel Rivals or what, but my System 32 got corrupted. So I was able to fix that. Thankfully, it only took about 2 hours. And I basically just got my PC back up alive before I recorded this. But yeah, that's kind of been what's up with me. I had 2 work parties last week for Christmas, so we had the company-wide work party on Monday. I was only there for about an hour and a half. But then, the old department I was in before my promotion, they had arranged a work party for Christmas for last Wednesday. Because, like, there's the big company-wide party, but then all the departments within the company can also make their own, do whatever they want as well. So, my department, we had a party planned out while I was still working there. So when they made the reservation, I was in there. So even though I got moved up to a different role, I still got to go to the party. And it was this crazy place called Urban Surf. It's this surfing simulator in Homebush by the Olympic Park. One of the coolest things I've ever seen, this outdoor surfing simulator. And there's a really fancy restaurant there called Arafi. So we went there, we had a 7-course lunch. I'm not a big seafood guy. So there was like some big just chunks of fish that, you know, if you like fish, I'm sure they were really good. There were people there talking about how good it was, but I'm not a fish person, so it wasn't really for me. But I had some like pork shoulder. I had some fried cucumbers, some deep fried eggplant, some pita bread with hummus, the best hummus I ever had in my life. But that was just, just super fancy. Like, they must have spent a few grand on that place. Like, much fancier of a restaurant than I'm really comfortable going to. But yeah, my work week last week, I had 2 different Christmas parties I went to. Had the company paid for 4 rum and cokes on my behalf, so I'm not gonna say no to that, I'll tell you that. But anyway, guys, just a little bit of a chit chat today. I didn't really have the energy to do much else. I hope you don't mind it. I hope you all have had a good week, especially as we get into Christmas here. It's that time of year. I know it's a great time of year for some people. It's a hard time of year for some other people, and I hope no matter which side of the fence you fall on there, you're getting through it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this almost every single day. Till next time, guys.